live on Amazon. And cheers, everybody. Boom, cheers. Carrie, I'm going to get you your own mug.
Yeah,
just for this
actually,
occasion.
I have that exact mug I was using this morning. I drank some tea, but I just didn't bring it with me.
Polar Express.
Michael's all about the to-go house mugs instead of like to-go coffee cups. So actual mugs are just in various places as you travel.
I got to be honest, I actually left one here at Rogue. And there's a fun fact. If you leave something here at the gym, you got to do burpees.
Oh.
To get it back. So they text me like, hey, you owe me 100 burpees to get your mug back. So
is it one of my mugs?
No, it's the one that I got from like a sponsor, that cancer one.
Oh man, that's a good mug.
Yeah, I'm going to get my burpees to get that back. But cheers, everyone. Today we're going in, as you can see right here, for those of you who are watching on most of our platforms, but on TikTok and Instagram, you're not going to see, we're going over nutrition for energy and mental clarity. So I'm going to be going over, I already have an entire book I've pretty much built off of this principle. And then we have another resource we give everybody that has access to our app. So if you guys want access to that, you just comment, DM, reach out, get on our app. We give it to you guys as an absolutely free resource. I'm going to screen share. If you guys are watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Amazon, you'll be able to see all this. If you're watching on Instagram or TikTok, you can hang out with us, comment, shoot messages, check out resources, hang out with Anna in the background.
Yeah, we got my little one joining us today.
It's part of the family fun. And that's everything we go over. We're speaking from a perspective of like as a family, as someone that has kids, as someone that has high demands in our life.
People who run businesses.
People that run businesses. So that's what we're going to kind of cover. First, we'll just kind of talk about a couple things, and I'll go right into the screen sharing and just kick off the fun. Right, Anna? So the principle I'm going to come from is what I would consider a little bit maybe more Western philosophy and approach, which is looking at a specific body type and then how we can eat according to said body type. And then Carrie's going to kind of complement that, looking, I guess, still in a body type, but how would you define how that perspective shifts from how I'm going to kind of define things?
Yeah, it's still body type. I'm coming from a more Ayurvedic philosophy, which just looks at the body in type, but I think I'm correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think with Western categorizing, they categorize you in either 1, 2, or 3 category. So with Ayurveda, there's three categories, but usually everyone is a combination of all 3, right, with certain ones being predominant. And also they recognize that due to external or internal changing conditions, those constitutions can also shift and change over the course of your life. You're born with a certain one that's never going to be any different. That's pretty much your general constitution, but due to lifestyle and different things and change of environment, Western as well. But
yeah, and it kind of depends. The philosophy that I'm using, this is built from shout out to Precision Nutrition. It's a credentialing organization, and this doesn't necessarily have an agreement. This is what's interesting, I think, in any perspective. Seldomly does everyone agree completely. But it's like, let's take these 3 body types, and usually everyone's a hybrid, to your point, of these body types. And then we find a blend of how we eat according to your body type, which can shift over time. But this is sometimes like we can do genetic testing, which is different. Also, if you're on Amazon, I did a food sensitivity test in the carousel, because that's, I think, something that's valuable that I've seen with, I won't name names, but people that I know personally, they've gotten a food allergy to turkey. And what tends to happen, what I've seen in this style, or how we define it, is if you eat and consume too much of something, you can actually cause an adverse response. So if you're eating a bunch of chicken or turkey or eggs, which is classic bodybuilder stuff, you can actually create a negative or an adverse response to it as a quote unquote sensitivity. That's not permanent, but just something to be mindful of.
Yeah, that's definitely the case in Ayurveda as well. So based on what your body type is, and the Ayurveda uses the philosophy of bringing you back into balance. So they're looking to get whatever constitution you're experiencing now as close to your birth constitution as possible, with using diet to balance out certain symptoms, certain, let's say, characteristics or qualities that will help basically your digestion, your immune system, your energetic system all function to the maximum level. So, but to your point, that does shift and change. They'll use like different categories of foods, and if they're heating or cooling and various things, and you use these foods in combination and at different times of the year as well, because based on the seasons, right, based on the external environment being hot or cold or dry or wet, that's going to change how you can balance internally, because Ayurveda uses the perspective that the external environment also influences your constitution. So it's maybe slightly more complex, but just in a different way. I feel like it's no less like complex, just in a different way.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to screen share now, and we're going to probably tag in back and forth because Anna's going to be hanging out with us. So if you guys have kids, you already know what's up. Like, one of us is probably going to be tagging in with her while the other one's presenting. And what I'm going to start with, so if you're watching on Instagram or TikTok, if you want to see the actual presentation live, you can hop on over to like our Facebook or Amazon or any of that. We'll have that in our link tree in our profile. If you guys want the link, just let me know. I'll put it in the comments, or you can watch the replay and we're going to have that. You can also be on our newsletter. We'll be sending out replays and resources on all this, but I wanted to share with you guys one of the basic principles. Oh yeah, Anna, you're going to get some jump rope
Get some jump rope in. Yeah,
I was literally
she's
just
never done jump rope, but she's watched Michael do it. So yeah. All right, honey. Listen, you got.
I think that's awesome.
You got to try to figure it out. Mommy's busy, so try to figure it out. Play around. It's okay if you don't do it right. Just have fun.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to just explore. So what I'm sharing right now for you guys that are watching the screen share is from a snippet from our book. This is actually on Amazon. I have it in the carousel right now. The digital version. Yeah, Chuck, what's up, dude? I also see Ludo. What's up, Ludo? Oh, yeah, NutriNeeds. I see the team, peptides and all that fun stuff. You guys want to comment any of those things, feel free to. But again, what we're looking at for this snippet, again, if you're watching on Instagram or TikTok, I'm presenting and screen sharing, but that's going to be available on Amazon, YouTube, all the other platforms. So if you want to see that, hop on over there, watch the replay. What we're going over is what's called our BMR, our basal metabolic rate, which is a fancy term for if you laid in bed all day and you did nothing, how many calories would your body require to just keep everything going and keep you alive? Yeah, y'all. So that's what we're looking at first. Then we use that base number to be able to build off of how many calories should we be roughly eating to be able to hit our goal. So in this screen share, you got it. That's silly. You have three options in how we broke this spreadsheet down. You can have a fat loss or weight loss goal. You can have a maintenance, body composition maintenance, or you can have a muscle gaining goal. And then we broke it down into 3 levels of activity. You live a sedentary lifestyle, so maybe minimal exercise, no more than 2 times a week. Then you have a active lifestyle, which is 3 to 4 times a week of exercise or movement. Like if you're like working a construction job, you'd probably be on the more very active side, which is 5 to 7 times a week of activity and more demanding. And the reason we look at these things, you want to see it? Look, can you help me point out these things? The reason we highlight these things is it gives us an idea of how many calories you want to eat. Now, to be transparent though, when I approach nutrition with clients or we have our team approach it with them, I don't actually want you guys counting calories. That's not our highest excitement. It's not super sustainable. You can, and it'll be very accurate to a degree. Because here's a fun fact. Did you know, like fun fact, the FDA, when they're regulating their caloric intake, they can have a margin of error beyond 10%. Oh, yeah. So if you're looking, if someone says 100 calories, it could be like 80 calories. It could be 120. Right. Now that by itself doesn't seem like a lot, but if you compound that throughout your entire day, you could be off by hundreds of calories. So I'm not saying don't count calories, don't be mindful, because we reference that and that's why we have this, but it's to highlight a simple technique, but don't become obsessed over it. So that for me, I'll just highlight my own. So I live a very active life. I exercise either every day or I'm active every day. So I would fall into that 3rd level. And my body weight right now is just say 190 pounds. Let's say 200 for easy math. So if I go to my reference point right here, and my goal is to lose body fat, I'm going to take the number 15 and I'm going to times it by my weight, which is 200. That's going to equate to 3,000 calories. That's how many calories I can be eating on a daily basis, ideally or roughly, to still hit my weight loss goal. Now, the key is your calories are going to dictate your weight. Your macronutrients, your fats or carbs, your proteins are going to dictate your body composition, is what we traditionally say. So like how much muscle do you have? How much fat? Because you could be 200 pounds and look drastically different depending on a few things. Exercise is one of them, sleep, stress, as well as what's going into your body. The quality of the nutrients too. So again, this is just one option. But again, I don't want to stress you guys too much with becoming obsessed about counting calories. One of the other things I do want to share is we're going to switch tabs, is we're going to go to a client tab. We're actually going to pull up my client tab. And I wanted to give you guys, share this tab instead. Perfect. So I want to share with you guys. You think so? Oh, you singing? I don't know. What do you see this as? So what we're seeing in screen sharing is day 1 as an example. I can.
She's pretending it's a microphone.
Can you help me? Oh, I'll talk into the microphone so everyone can hear me. Check, check. Can you guys hear me? So what we did was, oh, and then Carrie's got to check it too.
Check. Okay.
What we did was we broke down a sample based on our caloric intake.
Okay, honey.
Try to
be quiet, okay?
So we're going to want to do one of 2 things. This is the game plan. One of us is probably going to go with Anna. The other one's going to present, and then we'll switch. So again, if you can see the screen, it has roughly 2,400 calories. Because I brought it under 3,000 to be a little aggressive on my weight loss. Good content. Love the new direction of the team. Thanks, Chuck. We love you, dude. And being able to, again, I have salmon on here. I have Mediterranean chicken wrap. I have a chicken salad, and we have our Southwest burrito. Now, that doesn't mean you have to see this complex meat or this complex style every single day. Because sometimes people see our meal plans like, hey, should I be making all this every day? You don't have to. You can, so you have diversity. You don't have to eat all of this separately. Okay. I just want to share that with you guys so you can kind of see that. Now, I want to go back to our Nina, our presentation and look at our body composition. So we were talking about this. There's ectomorph. So you guys can see this. This is a more thin frame. Usually they want a hard gain weight. They have a hard time putting on muscle or just weight in general. So that's typically their goal. We have an endomorph, which is traditionally my body type, usually has an easier time putting on muscle, has a harder time keeping fat off or losing weight, which has been my focus. Then there's a mesomorph, usually more athletically driven and can put on weight or take it off, but has to be mindful of either direction. So if we think of an ectomorph, you can think of like a marathon runner. When we think of an endomorph, I want you to think of like a shot putter or an offensive lineman maybe. So you can still be athletic, just body composition looks different. If we think about mesomorph, you're thinking of like Serena Williams, or we have Reggie Bush. If you guys remember Reggie Bush, that's how you know you're in your probably like late 20s or 30s, because that's a very timed or dated reference. But it's just to give you an idea of what their body composition will look like in comparison. Okay. And usually people are hybrids. I'm more of like an endomorph, mesomorph hybrid in my definition. And then what we're going to do, the last piece I want to speak to before I tag Nina in to kind of give a contrasting perspective, and then we'll elaborate. Yeah, there you go. I'm seeing like, did I say Nina?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw Nina in the comments. Carrie's going to tag in. Nina, you're right over there. So with our ectomorph, if you can see, typically the goal is going to be putting on muscle or potentially an endurance support like marathon running, endurance training. We're going to be very particular on how we're going to feed ourselves pre-workout, what we're going to do during the workout, and then post-workout for each of these. And Chuck, we've talked about this. So we're going to eat differently based on how our workout goes, what our body type is. So pre-workout, P&C stands for protein and carb. We're going to have a protein and carb drink immediately before, so it's easily digestible. So we're not burning off any of our already maybe scarce muscle tissue that we want to continuously build. During the workout, we're going to have another protein and carb drink to continuously fuel a surplus state or to just support our muscle tissue and performance. I'm definitely not the one to tag in. Yeah, 100%. Thanks for laughing with me all. So then post-workout, we're going to go to another protein and carb combo or solid meal. So you can either have a liquid drink or you could go solid meal here. The reason we're going with a drink is the absorption rate. It's so our body can absorb it and get it in. On the flip side, now if we go to an endomorph, I'm going to go the other extreme end. You're usually going to be like my usual goals are fat loss or strength gaining and support there. So we're going to eat normally 1 to 2 hours prior to said activity. Then during the workout, we can do a protein and a carb drink or a branched chain amino acid drink, or which is just basically a protein drink. And then afterwards, we're going to eat normally 1 to 2 hours after or within that time frame. Then for our mesomorphs, we're usually going to try and put on muscle, or you're going to try and just potentially optimize your performance. You're going to be doing a normal meal 1 to 2 hours before, and then you're going to do your 1 protein and carb drink ratio during your workout. And then post-workout, you have the option of either doing a smoothie or a protein and carb shake or doing an actual meal. The key to this is when we do all these things, what do the ratios look like? We're going to get into that a little bit more with some of the things here we break down for men and women. It's going to be slightly different, but we use our hands as a reference guide. So 2 palms of protein-dense foods, 2 fists of vegetables. So this is like portion size. And the cool thing and reason I like this so much, do you prefer a BCAA or an ECA? Ooh, good question. I like BCAA, especially with leucine, and because it's like everybody loves leucine, right? Or that's how I remember everyone loves leucine. Leucine is going to be key for muscle repair. Now, I don't think, and honestly, like it depends on what you look at. You can follow like Dr. Lane Norton and stuff, and they'll say like, honestly, supplements may not be necessary. If you are getting all of these things from your food and your nutrition, you may not need to, but the likelihood most of us are, especially for a calorie deficit, is pretty minimal. So to add in supplements to that, to bridge the gap is really the point of that. But I kind of go with a BCAA over an EAA, essential amino acid, is for those of you who are seeing that, not sure. The difference, branched chain amino acid, BCAA, EC or EAA, essential amino acid. So that's just my 2 cents on it. But I'm glad to hear yours, like what might be you and what are you doing right now? And then what we're doing here is we're just looking at different body types will have different portions of their food. Yeah. So again, we can get all the way into it. I just want to give you guys a visual layout. Every body type will have a different ratio depending on what they need. So I want to just touch on that really quickly. I'm going to stop sharing and go hang out with Anna. And then Carrie, I'm going to let you tag in for the Ayurvedic side of that, what does that mean? What does that look like? How might that even compare? So I'm not screen sharing, but you can pull it up if you want to compare it to kind of what I talked about. I don't know if that makes sense for you, but I'll let you take it in. Oh, what's up, Joe? I see you. I'm gonna let Carrie take over from here, and I'm gonna chug some coffee before I do my labs today, because also I'm getting labs done because I'm working with a new clinic too. So we'll build some comparison.
Your coaches have coaches. So Ayurveda is, for probably most of you have never even heard of Ayurveda. It's a very Eastern approach to body type and diet nutrition. And like I was saying earlier in the abridged version, it is a little bit more complex in looking at body types. Most people, I shouldn't even say most people, all people in Ayurvedic understanding are a combination of 3 different body types. Those body types are Vata, which are the qualities of air and ether, Pitta, which is the quality of fire, and Kapha, which is the quality of water and earth. So a really easy way, if you're like, I have no idea what she's talking about, a really easy way to determine what kind of body type you are is you can just Google Ayurvedic constitution test or free Ayurvedic constitution, or what is my body constitution in Ayurveda on Google. And there's tons of resources where you'll get a series of questions and it'll tell you what your body type is. There are also Ayurvedic doctors and practitioners that you can go to, just like in Western nutrition. There's nutritionists you can go to, which can easily just look at you, talk to you for a little bit, and give you your constitution and create a meal plan, all these various things. But I'll start by just saying that when it comes to constitution, the Eastern approach is to really look at not only what am I looking at, like what does your body look like, but what is the quality of your mind? You know, what kind of thoughts do you have? They'll give you like a series of 3 or 4 different choices. Do you typically fall on the more anxious side, the more relaxed side, all these things? What is your approach to these certain situations? Like, how would you respond to this scenario or that scenario? They look at things like your elimination. How often are you urinating? What's the color of your urination? How often are you defecating? What's the color of your color and qualities and these kinds of things? How often do you get ill? So Ayurveda uses a much more holistic approach in the sense that they're looking at your whole body system, because nutrition, I feel like in the Western approach, nutrition is kind of its own thing. It's its own section. It affects many other things, but we'll look at nutrition as like a focal point, hack the nutrition and build the nutrition based on the person. And then, go various routes from there. In Ayurveda, it's more like, let me look at the whole body. How often are you getting sick? What is the quality of your mind? What is your emotional situation like? What kind of house do you live in? What kind of climate do you live in? What kind of foods do you typically like? What do you gravitate towards? And they're looking at the system as not just a nutritional perspective, but a whole energetic perspective. And then they'll design your nutritional profile. They'll give you different categories based on your primary constitution. So for example, myself, I remember this was years ago when I first took this test, I was like 30 or 40% Pitta and like 30 or 40% Vata. So I was almost like a split of 2 different constitutions, and then a very small percentage, whatever was left over, 10 or 15% Kapha. So when they're looking at, okay, you're a large percentage of this constitution, then a fairly large percentage of another constitution, and a tiny little bit in the third, the ideal situation is that they're reducing the 2 bigger constitutions and bringing them down to like, 25, 30%, 25, 30%, 25, 30%. That's the ideal situation, is that you're almost an even split of all 3 constitutions. And if you think about that from like a logical or philosophical perspective, if you have an equal split of all of the qualities of different body constitutions, you're extremely adaptable, right? In the situations where you really need to lose weight, you have a good amount of your system that can shift gears and be on board to lose weight. In a situation where you need to gain weight or you need to gain muscle, that's pretty easy and approachable too. In a situation where you need to rest or you need to focus on your mind more than your body, because in Ayurveda, these things are not separate, you're going to have the ability to do that too. Whereas if you're high in one constitution and very lacking in the other constitutions, you're going to find yourself really uncomfortable in a lot of situations. And you're going to find it more difficult to adapt when we talk about body types and changing your muscle constitution or losing fat or different things like that. So Ayurveda primarily uses diet to adjust different constitutional things, but they also use different practices, all different types of practices. Some are more exercise-based, like yoga, meditation, but a lot of them are really simple self-care based that help. I feel like most of their focus, this is a general thing, I'm not an Ayurvedic doctor, but a lot of their focus is about helping the body to eliminate waste more efficiently. Because if you think about energy as a pie, right, and so much energy is going towards digestion, so much energy is going towards keeping the immune system functioning, energy is going towards your mental and emotional faculties, energy is going towards your physical output. You have a fixed pie, and creating a maximization in the areas where you're going to want to reduce energy going out in the areas that seem kind of like a waste, right? Like elimination of waste is important, but if you can optimize that system and you can get more in your muscle output and your ability to output, that seems like a better situation than spending, let's say 15% of your energy pie on just purely waste elimination, because your body has a backlog of cellular debris. So there's various ways you can do that, like eating healthy and diets can help you slough off cells. Keeping a proper amount of water in your body can help you do that as well. But like, for example, there's a practice called body brushing. I can't remember the exact term they use in Ayurveda, but essentially it's like a skin brush. You can buy one on Amazon or anywhere on Google. You can search for a skin brush, and you just kind of slough off the skin on your body before you take a shower. And this helps to eliminate a lot more waste, because a lot of energy goes towards your external cellular debris. So stuff like that. Also, like tongue scraping after you brush your teeth. These kinds of things help eliminate waste. Thinking about your body as a cellular system rather than a muscular or a muscular system can be really helpful from the Ayurvedic perspective. We're really looking down at helping the body to maximize its potential by looking at the very, very tiny, tiny parts of us that are backlog or taking up too much of the energy pie, making everything else more difficult. So I'm trying to give you guys as much as I can without getting too deep into it, because just like anything else, like with the Western approach, you can get really, really deep into the science of it and go as far as you want. Do your research, find I wish I had heard about this before. Definitely going to dive into mine. Yeah, definitely dive into it. I can tell you, I've been kind of a middle of the road, I guess. I can't think of what that's called in Western medicine, the center body type, the one that can gain or lose easily and is a little more athletically built my whole life. And when I switched over but I had various issues with digestion. I had a lot of acidity in my stomach. I would have issues off and on with constipation. I moved a lot too. Like, I lived in big cities. I lived in New York, LA, Seattle, all these different places, which is a vastly changing climate. And I noticed in different climates, my body would behave in different ways, even when my diet seemed to remain the same. And I would try Western approaches to changing my diet and doing different things to help some of these issues I was having, even low energy and things like this. And it didn't seem to work for me. So when I looked into Ayurveda and I started getting more of a holistic, kind of deeper rooted understanding of how my body functioned, a lot of these problems corrected almost overnight. Like, it's not a magic pill, but within like 3 to 6 weeks, I had serious improvement with a lot of my systems. So it's worth looking into. I also just appreciate, from being kind of a type A person who's very strong-willed, the Ayurvedic approach is much more gentle, and it doesn't give you a lot of hard and fast rules. It gives you categories of foods, some of which have different qualities, and those qualities balance out the imbalanced qualities inside of you. So let's say, like me, right? I was high in Pitta and Vata. The quality of Pitta, if you think of them as they're always working on elements. So the quality of Pitta is fire. What are the qualities of fire? Fire's hot, fire's dry. So those are typically Pitta qualities. Now, that can show up in emotions in a lot of different ways. That can show up in your mental processes in a lot of different ways. So they say people who are high in Pitta tend to be more prone to anger, tend to be very strong-willed, tend to like things their way. So, you can see how having an imbalance of Pitta in your system would be problematic for being like a socially agreeable person. So to balance that out, you want more qualities of kind of like earth and water, more kapha qualities. You want things that are cooling, things that are providing wetness. So kapha quality is earth and water. And then they'll give you a list of foods that balance out, that have the qualities of earth and water, that when you eat, bring your system into balance. Vata quality is air and ether. So this, if you think of the quality of air, it's very dry, it's very fast, it's very erratic, it's changeable, it's very powerful. I had a lot of that in my system, but a lot of dryness inside your system can create a lot of issues with digestion, immune system, and mental, emotional processes. People who have a lot of Vata tend to be real high in anxiety. They tend to be a little more affected by diseases that would from dryness, like constipation, among other things, weak joints, weak bones, these kinds of things. These are people who have very high vata tend to suffer more from these kinds of diseases if vata is out of balance. So again, adding these more lubricating qualities of kapha, earth and water, your fats, these kinds of things will help people who have vata imbalances feel more, have things just function a little better. So as I said, I'm not an Ayurvedic doctor. I recommend if you really want to get deep into stuff, or if you're suffering from something really serious that's impeding your life, if you go to an Ayurvedic practitioner, these people are magic workers. It's a very different approach, but they'll correct things really quickly. And you get a lot of bang for your buck with an Ayurvedic doctor. But if you feel like I generally feel okay, sometimes I'm tired, I maybe have some things that feel out of balance that I can correct. A lot of times you can read some Ayurvedic books, you can do the constitution assessment online, and you can get graphs and charts of the kinds of foods that create certain qualities, and just use your own logic to balance them out. Okay, I'm really high in vata. I have a lot of air and ether. Let me eat some kapha foods to balance out those qualities. Or I'm really high in pitta. I need to eat some kapha foods. Or if you're super high in kapha and you don't have you're sluggish, you find it hard to move, you're not very motivated, you want to start working out, now you're going to want to incorporate some more foods that are higher in vata and pitta qualities to bring your energy up and get you motivated. So it's kind of just like a little bit of a counterintuitive balancing approach with Ayurveda. Sorry, there's a lot of craziness going on here. I'm trying to stay focused, but it's a whole show over here. But yeah, so Ayurveda is just looking for balance, and there's no perfect solution to, like, there may be times in your life where you really need to gain muscle. You need to focus on gaining muscle. You're a fighter, you're you're competitor of some sort, you're an athlete of some sort, and you can hack the system, so to speak, to gear you more towards building muscle, same as you can in Western medicine. But Ayurveda warns that just focusing on this one area for a long sustained period of time may have deleterious effects on your health, because the ideal health situation for each person in Ayurveda is one of as close to balance as possible. So you can use it, like I said, as a hacking mechanism. You can use Ayurveda to work for you and change qualities, but being out of balance will inevitably have its deleterious effects, whether it's on your on your physiology or on your mind and emotionals. Like, I know a lot of people that have worked out for a very long time who are super fit. They're very driven. They're high level achievers, but mentally and emotionally, they have a lot of trouble slowing down. Mentally and emotionally, they have a lot of trouble just sitting with themselves. They have a lot of trouble starting meditation practices. They have a lot of trouble resting. And then inevitably what happens is people get injured at some point, right? Any high level athlete, any high level competitor, at some point, you're going to experience an injury. You're going to have to get a surgery. You're going to have to, and they find it hard to cope with the situation because they've spent so much energy achieving these certain things and not a lot of energy being in balance in general in their mind and emotions and their ability to cope. So again, Ayurveda focuses on overall adaptability. That's the boat I'm in. Yeah, core can't fit. Yeah, that's the boat I'm in. Yeah, and honestly, I can't tell you how many people, because again, I'm a high level achiever too. I've been an athlete, and I had a very serious hip injury. I'll tell you guys a little personal story why I even got into Ayurveda and yoga. But I was a martial arts practitioner. I was doing jiu-jitsu. I was doing running. I did track and field when I was younger, cheerleading, all kinds of sports my whole life, gymnast, all these things. But I had a really bad hip injury in jiu-jitsu, and I continued running on it, and I continued working on it, which again, time and time again, I see these people, these high-level athletes, these very high functioners push themselves when they get an injury, or, they'll get a slight injury and they'll just keep working. They'll keep working. And eventually the body breaks down. So in Ayurvedic philosophy, which I didn't know this at the time, they would say, hey, if you keep pushing yourself, your body is eventually going to force you to stop and look at the thing that is out of balance. But at the time, I just kept doing that. And it got so bad. I think I had just turned 30 years old, and I thought I might need a hip replacement because I was having trouble running. I was having trouble walking. I was starting to miss jiu-jitsu, and I didn't have a lot of tools that were bringing me into balance. And it was by serendipitous happening that I ended up finding this yoga mentor, my first yoga mentor, and he was offering teacher training, and I started working with him. And within, I want to say about 3 months, it wasn't very long. I was only doing it like once or twice a week in the beginning. Within 3 months, all of my hip issues, among others, were corrected. And I began to really start focusing on my mind and my emotions and recognizing like, okay, there's a reason why I keep driving and I won't listen to my body when I need to stop. There's a reason why I can't feel comfortable settling down and, coping with my situation. If I feel like I'm disabled or I feel like I can't do something, I just get really frustrated and I keep doubling down. So I actually took many, many years looking at that and dealing with that. And for those of you that saw my talk yesterday on meditation, mindfulness, and lifestyle practices, now I'm a very different person than when all that was going on, because I realized that it just isn't sustainable. Or it wasn't for me anyway. And I have yet to meet someone who it is sustainable for. I know, I saw the doggy. My daughter's really excited about it. Yeah, you want to tag
Yeah,
in? I pretty much covered everything on Ayurveda, just kind of giving them a little bit of my personal history and some resources to point to. Got a couple interesting comments. Like, I'm looking at yoga's recovery method for after surgery. Yeah, totally. Yoga is the way to go. But I will tell you, Chuck, when I first started yoga, just as a warning to the kind of person I think I know you are, because I relate to you, my past self relates to you. When you first start yoga, it's almost excruciating how slow it is. Like, it just feels, there's a lot of days in the beginning where it feels like nothing's happening, or like your mind just goes crazy, especially in Shavasana. At the end of yoga, they do like a 10 to 15 minute relaxation where you just like sit. And it was so uncomfortable for me in the beginning to just sit and relax and pay attention to my body. It took a few months of me consistently doing it once or twice a week before I obviously started seeing improvements. And then I had enough juice to keep going with it. And then now I'm obsessed. I do it all the time. I teach it. But yeah, it's really challenging in the beginning, I think, for high level performers. I see a lot of high level performers enter the yoga world with like hot yoga or like these newer age, really intense yogas. And if you're looking for relaxation and healing, you kind of want the opposite of like hot yoga and these fun things. You want stuff that's more like hatha yoga, HATHA, or just rooted in very like rudimentary yoga, because that's what'll train them. I've done it before. It was super hard. Yeah, it is. It's really challenging. But sticking, like anything else, you stick with it, especially the things that are hard. Helps with no hot yoga. Yeah, I can't hang with hot yoga. It's very popular around here, but I don't know. You can't pay me to teach or be in a hot yoga session. I run hot anyways. Like, I'm a pitta quality. We talked about that with Ayurveda, which is the quality of fire. So I don't need any more heat. I'm already bringing enough heat in my day to day. Yeah, bar yoga. Yeah, bar yoga too is really. But for healing, I mean, if you're recovering from surgery and stuff, you're gonna want to look for more like lower, slower yogas. Even restorative and that kind of stuff can be really helpful, even though mentally and emotionally, again, it can be really challenging. All right, I'll tag Michael back in and
bam, tag.
Do the fun stuff.
Okay. So I thought that would be like a nice kind of contrast. Hopefully that helps give you guys maybe a different perspective on how we can look at nutrition, how we can have a relationship to it. Morning, Mama Dukes. Nice setup. Is that Rogue? Yeah, it is. I just saw your Chuck, your comment on Amazon. This is Rogue. This is our like strength conditioning area, all that fun stuff. Bar yoga is, yeah. I've never done that either. I could imagine it is. Yeah, I'll pass on the hot yoga too. But especially on Long Island, I noticed a lot of the guys from Long Island MMA, especially, were doing hot yoga for a while. All right, so I'm going to go back and tag in, and I wanted to present on one more topic, one more thing, because a lot of times people get overwhelmed with how we can put, all right, I know how many calories to eat, what foods do I eat now? So I wanted to present and share with you guys on that so you can get a better idea. And again, these are all resources we're going to be sending out. If you guys are on our newsletter, if you've joined up, you'll get all this emailed at the end of the week. Also, if you're on our app, you're going to get access to this as well, just as a thank you. If you guys are interested on getting on the app or on the newsletter and you're not already, or working with us and our team, we've made it more accessible than ever now, because we can go through insurance as well as we can do cash out of pocket. That's totally fine. But if you guys want to join us or just explore that anymore, shoot us a DM on however you're watching this, or reach out to us on our newsletter, on our link tree. And I'm looking forward to support you guys. Or if you find this valuable and you just want to donate, we have our GoFundMe set up. Since the storm, it's been kind of rough goes. So if you want to support and you found value, we appreciate that as well. So again, I'm going to do a little bit of a screen share to present on this topic. We call it our kitchen rescue pack, but realistically what we're doing with it is really going over how to build the perfect meal. So first, we're going to look at the first step, which is choosing our ingredients. If you guys are, again, watching on TikTok or Instagram, You're going to want to see the screen share version of this most likely, so you can watch it on Facebook, Amazon, YouTube, LinkedIn, or you can watch the replay. We're going to share that with you guys as well. So we break things down into 4 categories. We got protein, we have vegetable, we have smart carb, and we have healthy fat. Now, we could say you don't love the words smart carbs or healthy fat because you don't define things like that, but it just kind of gives us some context, right? And when we're looking at these things, we're going to pick one ingredient from each category to build our perfect meal. And these aren't the only options we have, but we created a list of about 10 or so items from each. So let's just give an example so you guys can kind of get what I'm talking about. We have protein, vegetables, smart carbs, healthy fats again. So we'll take chicken breast from the protein category. We'll take Brussels sprouts from the vegetable category. I like a spaghetti squash combo with that, and then doing an extra virgin olive oil. So that's our 4 key ingredients. Now we can do more with herbs and spices. That's going to go into our third option. But then the second step is how are we going to portion this? So we were talking about body types before, and that's kind of the things that we use. We're going to do palms of protein to measure protein. We're going to do fists to measure our vegetables. We're going to do a cupped hand to measure our carbs. And we're going to do a thumb of fat. It's kind of like a tablespoon. And that's because, listen, if you're going to try and measure out and scale your food everywhere you go, it's not going to be very sustainable. But your hands go with you everywhere. So it gives you a pretty good reference point. So if you're eating out, let's say you have like a salad. You're like, all right, these things are all mixed together. You can roughly get an idea still. If you're making a sandwich or a stew or anything like that, for every serving you want to have, you can use that. So for men's size portion, give or take, it's going to be 2 palms for every portion. For a woman, it's going to be 1. Again, same thing with vegetables, carbs, and fats. We're going to go with 2-to-1 ratio. Again, this isn't perfect. It's something you can play with, and we use this in our actual meal planning, but it's a very helpful baseline to start from. So then the third step, once we've got our food ingredients, we've got the portions of how much we're throwing in there, we're then going to add spices and herbs to flavor it even more, because you could take the same chicken, Brussels sprouts, spaghetti squash, and olive oil and change the aromatics and the garnishes, and it'll be a completely different meal. So we have categories like Italian, French, Mexican, Japanese, Thai, Moroccan, Caribbean, Indian, Southwest Spanish. And it has different kind of herbs and spices that fall into each. So let's just take the Italian. So oregano, basil, fennel, capers, anchovies, olives, and orange. And you have to use all of these. These are just options you can use to flavor your dish, to give you a good place to start. So that's the third one. And again, you can take the same thing and you have like 8 different options you can mix and match from. Now, finally, cooking the food. We're going to do step-by-step processes. Another option we have is we created a slow cooker recipe book. And Chuck, we've talked about this before, right? If you have a busy life, family, responsibilities, when you first wake up in the morning, take all these ingredients, dump it into your slow cooker, turn it on 4, 6, 8 hours. You come back at the end of the day, boom, you've got dinner. So that makes it a little bit easier when it comes to the cooking, but you can also bake, saute. There's a variety of things. Put it on a plate, sample it. And then the last thing we have here is an additional resource I won't go over, that I really just wanted to touch on, is how to make a quote unquote perfect smoothie. Slow cooker is best for busy families. Yeah, Chuck, I remember we were talking about that last season too, which is what made me originally start that. And it's delicious. Yeah, Nina knows. Nina's helped out with that and done some great meal prep. So again, the super shake guide. So looking at the difference between like a juice bar shake, which is going to have added sugars and some potentially processed items, versus something we can make at home, which can be more nutrient dense, whole food based. The tricky thing when we do a smoothie or anything like that is because you don't have to chew it as much, your body absorbs it faster, which is great pre and post workout. But throughout the day, you want to be mindful of that too. Just something to consider. But again, I'm not going to go into all of this. I just want to share with you guys on how we're kind of approaching it. This is another resource you'll get as a download from joining our newsletter and just participating in all of this. But those are the key things I wanted to touch on when it comes to nutrition. So again, the biggest thing I want you to take away from my side of it is being able to know or tap into like, hey, what is my goal? What probably represents my body type? And then what are the food items I can eat that I enjoy? And how can I mix them together? So that's kind of a few things, but to bring it down to 3, figure out your body type, align it with your goal, pick foods you enjoy. That's really it. If you use these basic principles, you get pretty far. And then if you want additional support, whether it's with coaching or accountability or any of those things, again, we have our team. We're now leveraging insurance, so it can be 0 out-of-pocket cost to you, because we're trialing the next 10 people we're working with. We have 6 right now. We have 4 spots open. These 10 people are going to cost you 0 out-of-pocket, no deductible, no copay. We're going to take care of all of that for you. We found ways to kind of work around that. And then after that, we're going to figure it out from there. But it makes it way more attainable, so financial isn't the barrier for you. And then obviously we have a variety of additional add-ons too. So I'm going to pause. I want to see what questions, if any, that brings up. I'm going to go through Amazon as well to see if anything came in here that I might have missed, and really just try and, again, add value for you guys.
I kind of wanted to pull up a list of.
Oh yeah, and if you want to tag in too.
I wanted to pull up a list of the.
Mama Duke said she loved it too. Yeah, if you want to pull up, so we can right? You could just Google it and then we can screen share.
Yeah. Okay, here, let me pull
So,
this
and then I'm going to just tag in really quickly to Amazon, y'all, to make sure. There you go. All right, then I'll go check on Anna.
Okay.
And then if you want to screen share that, what we would do is you would just go back to StreamYard.
Okay, let me just find.
Yeah, pull up what you want. There you go. Ooh, you got coffee or tea?
I was trying to find like a graph.
Ooh. You could go back to Google and maybe look images.
Okay.
Like maybe it'll be under there.
Let's see.
Yeah, like something like that.
Perfect. Yeah. But I want one for all three. Here we go.
There it is. Bam.
Or even something like this.
There you go.
That's only Vata. Okay. All right, let's pull this up and see if we can find.
Yeah, let me know when you're ready to screen share. I'll help you.
Okay. All right, here we go, hun. All right, and how do I screen share it?
So you're gonna go back to StreamYard.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna see a little button that says present.
Okay.
See where it says present, and then you're gonna click screen share or share screen.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go to like select a tab after you click that. So you'll click that, and then under tabs, it'll have a deeper look into. Go back up top. That deeper look into.
Yeah.
Ayurveda. Just hit share.
Okay. Cool.
And then boom, there you are.
Okay.
And anything you do on that, they'll see.
Yeah. So I guess for those of you on Instagram and TikTok, you're not going to see this graph. So I'm going to try to describe it. But basically, for anyone on Facebook or YouTube or Amazon, you'll see this graph. This breaks it down to Vata, Pitta, and Kapha diet. So again, these in Ayurveda, they're looking to bring everything in balance. So most always it's going to be pretty, like as you can see here on the left, there's Vata diet. It has like a pie and it says 50% carbs. So this is kind of crazy, right? If you think about Western medicine, usually they're going to want to keep very specific carbs very low. In Ayurveda, it really doesn't look so much at carbs, fat, or protein. It looks far more in the qualities of food. So depending on your body type, like Vata in particular, there's probably going to be more proteins or different carbs that are used to just balance out the qualities of the excess air in your system. So they're going, okay, when you take in a food, right, like an apple, for instance, and you digest that apple, does it produce air, water, fire, or earth in your system? So that's really what they're looking at, which is not necessarily intuitive for Westerners. Like you don't think when you eat an apple or when you eat a certain food that it's going to produce different elemental qualities in your body, but that's very Ayurvedic philosophy. So for example, here on the Vata plate, they have 10% fruits, 20% veggies, 20% protein, 50% carbs, and a healthy amount of dairy as well. For Pitta, and Vata's the air ether quality. For Pitta, we have 10% fruits, 30% veggies, 30% protein, 30% carbs and dairy. So that one's a little bit more of an even split. And again, the types of carbs, protein, and veggies, fruits, fats are going to look slightly different for Pitta because Pitta is the quality of fire. So they're looking for more cooling foods, which we'll get a little bit into that. Whereas with Vata, it's not so much fire in the system. So that the fruits and veggie choices are going to be different. And then for the Kapha plate, we have 10% fruits, 40% veggies, 20% protein, and 30% carbs with a very small amount of dairy. Dairy is really small recommended in Kapha diets because dairy is very cold and wet. So if you think of Kapha as the quality of earth and water, they're like, you don't want to consume a lot of dairy with a Kapha type constitution because you're going to just aggravate your wet and cold constitution. With the Pitta person constitution who's a little bit more fire, dairy is cooling and wet, so that can be helpful in moderation because too much dairy can start to produce acidity and these various things that will agitate Pitta. With Vata, they're like the quality of air. Dairy is very good because dairy tends to be a more heavy type of wet and cool food. So they're like pretty much you can have as much dairy as you want as a Vata diet. So the types of diet they're going to give you based on your constitution and the balance of your constitution is going to look vastly different. So it lists a series of different qualities of carbohydrates. So I'm just going to give you a little overview. For the carbs for a Vata pacifying diet, you're going to be looking at whole grains like cooked cereals, pasta, bread, oats, wheat, rice. For a Pitta diet, the carbohydrates they're going to recommend is wheat breads, cooked grains, basmati, oats, quinoa, and pasta. So again, very different carbohydrates based on what kind of constitution you're at. For a Kapha diet, their carbohydrates are going to look more like crackers, dry cereals, cooked grains, toast, amaranth, barley, basmati, buckwheat, and corn. And I'm going to explain a little bit why those are so different. So for Kapha, again, we're looking at the qualities of earth and water. So if you think about the carbs they're recommending, these are all very drying carbs, dry cereals, crackers. These are things that are going to create air and heat in the system. They're not going to recommend those for someone who has Pitta qualities or Vata qualities because there's already a lot of air and heat in the system. So for someone like Pitta, you have here several different varieties of rice: basmati rice, white basmati rice, oats, pasta. So these are going to be things that are more cooling for Pitta. So, and it looks the same across the board. So with proteins in the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, it changes. But again, it's not so much the amount that you're getting, protein, carbs, fat. It's more about the quality of foods you're taking in and whether they're aggravating your constitution or they're bringing your constitution more in balance. So you can see, I have this up on this blog here, this Village Therapy blog. It gives you a little deeper look into Ayurveda. You can, again, get very, very deep into this. Even on this blog, it has a list of different, of a couple recipes that you can get into. You could also just, like I said, Google your constitution test, take the test, find out what your percentage, oh, we had a phone go down. Find out what your percentage split is. And then you could just Google, what is a good diet for someone who's 40% Kapha, whatever your split is. You can specifically look up diets and recipes that will help bring you into balance. Again, without seeking an Ayurvedic doctor or practitioner, you can get a lot done on your own, especially if you're not having any flaring issues or serious issues going on. But if you are having some more serious issues with your energy levels, your digestion, your immune system, if you're getting sick a lot, if you're very sluggish, or if you're having, certain organ issues like kidney issues or liver issues, then I highly recommend seeking out an Ayurvedic doctor, somebody who specializes in this kind of philosophy and training, because they will literally be magicians for your system. And it doesn't take very long. Within like 3 to 6 weeks, you'll see a lot of turnaround with your issues, just changing your philosophy and getting a little research in. So I pretty much covered everything, Mike, that I wanted to cover. If you want to tag in, we've got maybe like 10 more minutes to like bring it home.
Yeah. So one of the things I thought we could cover is like look at maybe some of the commonalities. You're on it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So, and there's we talk about it a lot because we're both coming from different philosophies. This phone took a tumble, so it's a little.
Oh yeah.
I'm just gonna.
We'll readjust it.
Yeah,
All right. So pull this up and see what comments are coming in.
Yeah.
But what's up, G? Hey, hi.
Oh, nice.
So one of the things that I heard you mentioning that I did want to speak to.
Yeah.
We're just tagging because I think this could be like a commonality point. Is you want to touch it? Oh, that one I don't know if you should touch.
You gonna play with the doggy?
With these different perspectives, it's like whatever the body type is, there's a ratio of how many fats, carbs, proteins, and the sources for them. So you were mentioning like 50% carbs maybe.
Yeah, for
right?
Vata. Yeah.
So that's like very similar to ectomorphs. Ectomorphs, they suggest 55% carbs.
Ectos are like the skinny.
Skinny,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Same with Vata.
So that's very similar.
Yeah.
Usually it's like 15%, 20% protein, and then the rest coming from fat. So like 20, 30%, maybe more. So 50 to 55% carbohydrates for ectomorphs.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean that's the only ratio, but the thought process is you're inviting higher carbohydrate intake because there's usually a faster metabolic burn.
Okay,
So that's like, I think, a commonality.
Yeah, and I didn't look at the pie for Kapha, but I'd be interested to see because that'd be like an endomorph, right? Someone who's on
I think that would probably be like a
suspect
40-30-30 or some variation.
Well,
of that.
I do know that they highly recommend mostly just vegetables and fruits. So again,
okay.
it's going to be very similar.
Maybe
Probably pretty low in fats, dairies.
Yeah,
but definitely very high in fruits and vegetables, which again, same thing with any
runs
kind of
common.
Yeah, endomorph. You're going to need more fiber, more lower calorie foods, like a large mass of lower calorie.
Yeah, he is playing. He's just playing tug of war, and maybe you don't like it. I get it.
She's having her feelings.
Yeah, I get it. You can have those feelings.
She's used to having a different kind of dog. Misha, we have a dog at home, a German Shepherd, who's.
Isn't action so fun? Because look, he sees you're sad on us, so he wants to see what's up. See what's happening? This is the fun navigation. So yeah, guys, I want to just kick it to you because we hit the topics, and there's where I want to draw some parallels. But I want to see if you guys have additional questions. And then one question I know came up. I'm actually going to see one of the partners that we have, or we started working with, which is a men's clinic here in town, Carolina Health and Wellness. And they work with like hormones, peptides, lab reports. I'm going to go do labs later. The reason I bring this up, when you do your labs, if you ever work with a primary care physician or your doctor, if you can, have them do a full lab panel to see if you have nutrient deficiencies, because less than your fats or carbs or proteins. If you know you're vitamin D deficient, for example, which last time I checked, a research study, that's a cool one, showed that 88% of Americans were vitamin D deficient. Yeah. So if you know that, you can have vitamin D rich foods or supplement that. That's where having labs and tests can be important. Or again, I put food sensitivity test in the Amazon carousel, because that could be something that's helpful to note too. But that's pretty much all the things I want to hit on and that I figure we got, but we'll stay in for a couple more minutes, see if you guys got questions, anything like that. Let me check Amazon. Again, I appreciate you guys always jumping in and working through as best we can with like the family dynamic, Anna hanging with us,
dogs hanging out,
pivoting. And we got such a really good response. I appreciate everyone that showed up this week. I think this is something we're going to routinely do more of, whether it's like not maybe 5 or 6 days a week, but maybe once a week or once a month doing that. So if you guys are interested in that, stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribing wherever you're viewing this. And just appreciate y'all. We're gonna do one more day tomorrow, which is gonna be,
I think it's 12 or 11.
We might have to shift the time 12, a little bit, but we're gonna shift it because I want to be in Greenville at 1. I talked to Deuce. The fighters report at 1.
Yeah,
so we can leave by like 10, 12. 15. So we'll probably move it to 10:15 tomorrow.
Yeah,
and do our finishing accountability, relationships, and the communal dynamic, which is also great here at Rogue. One of the things I like, if you're in Asheville, you guys are looking for like a community, Rogue's a pretty awesome place, and obviously I'm here tagging it with health coaching and strength training and all these other fun things. But yeah, I figured that will pretty much leave it off.
Yeah.
I'm glad you came down, because originally Carrie was going to be in Waynesville and not come down. So I'm glad she was able to tag in.
It's tough when we have the little one, especially the littlest one, that's my 2-year-old too, and trying to do these. So it's kind of like, should we just do solo? But we just figured we would just tag in and try it today. We got the other 2 kids we got to pick up from school and a very busy day ahead. So it worked out. But yeah.
Have a great weekend as well. Thanks, Dan.
I look forward to hearing about you guys looking into the Ayurveda stuff, because it seems like a lot of people who were listening here didn't have much info about any of that. And if you guys are looking up your constitution and finding out some interesting information, please leave comments. You guys can always DM us too. And I'd love to just hear what your journeys are in that regard, because mine was very enlightening in the early days of looking into Ayurveda and bringing my body back into balance. I had a lot of success. So good luck with all of that. And again, if you need coaching services, I'm here. I have a fair amount of Ayurvedic knowledge in conjunction with my yoga knowledge. I'm a 500 RYT yoga instructor, and just general lifestyle and health coach. I create content with Michael. So if you want to look into any of that with me, feel free to. And then Michael's here for all your nutrition needs as well. As we said in the and earlier, there's a lot of overlap between the different approaches. So working in conjunction with a couple who's using all of the tools from Eastern and Western can probably give you some options that you might not get elsewhere. So awesome.
That's it. Cheers, y'all.
Bye.
Bye. And then Anna, of course, she's doing a great job of hydrating action.
Oh, no.
It's like, good job. She poured water in.